They're 0-6. No, not the Denver Broncos. They're 2-5, which means they've at least had success. The 0-6 record belongs to the groups trying to recall Democrats in the state legislature and the governor. This afternoon, the recall attempt against Senate President Leroy Garcia not only failed, but failed in spectacular fashion. Dave and Joseph drove from Pueblo with these Budweiser boxes to turn in petitions to recall Democratic Senate President Leroy Garcia. Let's stop here real quick. 13,506 valid Pueblo voter signatures were needed to get a recall put on the ballot. So how many signatures are in the beer boxes? Do you have 13,506 valid signatures?
We don't know. We have not counted.
Why would you collect signatures, not know how many you're turning in, and then turn these into the Secretary of State?
We promised our circulators and all our volunteers that we would follow through, and that's what we're doing.
There were not 13,506 signatures in the boxes. There were 3 packets containing 4 signatures. 4. But Dave said there are more signatures left in Pueblo, petitions that were not turned in because if they were, they become a public record, and he was concerned with doxing, meaning someone posting the names and addresses online for all to see. Did they have more signatures? I don't know. At least when dismissed Polis failed to turn in signatures to recall the governor, they brought boxes full of paperwork for us to see. Were those full of signatures? I don't know. What I do know is no state lawmaker is facing a recall election this year. I recall when recalls succeeded. It wasn't that long ago. In 2013, enough voters were upset with Colorado's new gun laws that they not only signed petitions to have a recall election of Democratic Senate President John Morse and Democratic Senator Angela Jaron, they voted in that election to kick them out of office. A third Democratic Senator, Evie Hudak, resigned before the recall petitions against her were turned in. 3 for 3. Just like that. The Broncos, though, they appear to be a rebuilding period for politics. Earlier this year, Congressman Ken Buck won the election to be the chair of Colorado's Republican Party. When he won, he said, "We will teach them how to spell recall." Recall is 6 letters. 6, the number of years ago that recalling state lawmakers was successful. 6, the number of failed recall efforts this year. 6, 2 more than the number of signatures turned in today. 6, the number of recalls that fairly have people asking, what happened to the money given to support the recall, and what happens to the information voters willingly gave up for groups unwilling to turn in the paperwork?